Hello, my name is Gloria, and I'll be discussing sources of inspiration. So, to start off, when career denotes the evolving sequence of a person's work experiences over time. When Edward Sutherland embarked on a study of the professional thief, the concept of career was utilized to the field of crime and deviance. According to Sutherland, the professional thief makes crime a regular business undertaking and a way of life. The professional attains experiences, organizes his life around his criminal pursuits, knowledge, skills, and specialized attitudes. Therefore, the only difference is that he makes his career through an illegal rather than a conventional line of activity. In substance abuse research, studies that build on the concept of career fall into four main categories, which include addiction career, natural history, pathway arguments, and lifestyle hypothesis. For example, addiction career includes escalation, experimentation, maintenance, change, recovery, and ex-addiction. Moreover, escalation can occur in four modes, which include mild, moderate, severe, mild, severe, moderate, severe, and severe only. On the other hand, natural history illustrates drug use along with the natural process of maturation, aging, and growth. Overall, substance use breaks out at youth, escalates during adolescence, stabilizes and matures throughout adulthood, and regresses in the senior stage. On the other hand, pathway arguments attempt to portray the general path of progression or sequence for the use of different substances, licit or illicit, with or without specific indication to gender, race, or age. A common pathway is that users initially consume legal substances such as alcohol and tobacco. They then continue with marijuana. Eventually, they resort to hardcore drugs such as cocaine and heroin. Lifestyle hypothesis approach drug use as a lifestyle that arises from an interacting network of influences, including conditions, choice, cognition, and change. Although conditions, choice, and cognition lead people to different lifestyles, change is possible with the utilization of intervention. For example, interventions can be exercised to assist drug users to manage life conditions, to improve decision making competence, and learn cognitive patterns in support of a drug free lifestyle.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Sanchez, and I'm going to talk to you about theoretical framework. It is used to organize specific social phenomena within the social sciences. This lesson introduces the four major theoretical perspectives in sociology, including social conflict, feminism, and symbolic interactionism. Theories can be formed to explain, predict, and understand phenomena in many cases, and to challenge and extend existing knowledge within the limits of critical bonding assumptions. The critical framework is a structure that can hold or support a theory of research studies, emphasize the changing character of a drug use and drug users. Substance use and abuse begin with prerequisites such as users, substance, time, and space. The career, the career perspective serves a multitude of purposes. Drug use is not a static state, rather, it is a changing condition. It takes place through progressive and regressive stages, makes different career pathways. General use career pathways such as non use, treatment, temporary absences, relapse, maturing out, retirement, and total abstinence. However, individuals' variations can change the sequence of events. Example is death from drug overdose can occur right after. Age can also predict different career pathways.
My name is Rafael Crespo, and I'll be talking about the second half of the theoretical framework. Uh, so another factor is race can also influence career pathways. An example is that Caucasians are usually cocaine users, whereas African Americans are crack users. Socioeconomic status can make a difference as well. Each drug may develop a general pattern used due to its chemical composition. Most psychoactive substances use patterns including stages of intake and tolerance. The general use pattern for each drug can be modified in various forms when applied to individual users. Another key factor is knowledge. It refers to the inventory of substance known to a society. The unique mix of social factors makes it challenging to identify the general pattern. Uh, the unique mix has are there's six factors that contribute to the mix. The first one being that substances are available in natural and synthetic forms by legal and illegal means. The second one is that substances serve multiple purposes, such as passive relief from pain and depression, as well as social creation and enhancement of pleasure. The third one is substances range from mild to hard and are found in street to over the counter. The fourth one is alcohol at home to coffee at work, special drugs in private places to wine at gatherings. The fifth one is drug use is different between age groups. Light drugs are associated with youngsters, hard drugs are associated with adolescents, and so on. The sixth one is that drug use is different in social class and status. The poor use cheaper drugs, which makes them vulnerable to poisoning, overdosing, and police arrest, while the rich may secure their drug use as a privileged lifestyle due to the fact that they are not subjected to the same experiences as those of lower status.
Theoretical components. The three components that are a major factor in the overall theoretical framework include career stages, change through career stages, and career roles. Career path stages of use. The career perspective examines the career path of substance use and abuse through non-use initiation, experimentation, casual use, habitual use, dependence, and stoppage. For non-use, that means that there is a complete, total, and absolutely abstinence from any substance. And there's two types of non-use, which are pristine or virginal non-use, which is never using a substance over time, or retired or maturation non-use, which is past substance uses. Initiation is the start of a use career, and that's either voluntary, involuntary, on the first use only. And it may be used once and it's not enjoyed, so they go back to non-use, or may be interested and experiment and can lead to usage. Experimentation is a self-motivated process and may involve a series of uses during a time span. Some factors may include peer pressure, peer influence, social pressure, and it may develop some coping mechanisms for effects of use and become psychologically, physiologically, and socially prepared for later stages of use. Casual use is when an individual's experimentation is spread out sporadically over time. Users may develop casual use, for example, alcohol is for light drinkers, social drinkers, gatherings, dinner, tobacco,
Career path, change through the stages. Human beings are material beings. Life is a continuous cycle of reusing energy. All humans have the potential to use or abuse substances. natural selection and adaptation, why some substances are foods and medicine, while others are considered poison, stimulants, depressants, or psychedelic drugs. Drug use is influenced by factors at physiological, psychological, economic, and social levels. Drug use can be used either accidentally or necessarily. Physiological factors: genetic inclination, biological chemical imbalance, food intake, medicine, or material changes. Cravings, even without having tried it before. Psychological factors: curiosity, excitement, sensation seeking, anxiety, or depression. Teenagers are mostly drawn through curiosity. Social factors: influences or pressure from family, peers, school, workplace, or other social networks. Availability or convenience of the substance, social custom, and legal age. From initiation to experiment. Physiological accommodation and adaptations are explored, tested, and developed through repeated experimentation. Motivation for multiple trials comes from pleasure and gain. Continuous experimentation can ultimately cause cravings of the substance. Users will decide how it makes them feel and if they want to keep using.
So on page 36, it talks about the economic factors that are found to be insignificant from the very beginning of the experiment. So for example, the first thing is that cost of use is not high, and drugs may be provided free by individuals under whom experimental users are still beginners. Having a small amount of money for a small dosage from a known or unknown source is easy, and experimentation can sustain well without the much risk and cost. Experimentation facilitated by the availability of drugs, knowledge of drug using rituals, the network of drug users, and social tolerance. After the experimentation, casual users use is an outcome of habitual use. So casual use proves that users gain upper hand over the effects of a substance. Physiological terms develop tolerance for but have no dependence on it. Physical conditions necessary, proper level of bodily elasticity is required to accommodate any imbalance caused by the drug effect after use and restore the body to its natural equilibrium when the drug effect is absent in the period of non-use. Identified proper level of body elasticity among casual substances users by laboratory work. Psychologically, change from experimentation to casual use necessitates self-containment of any sensational experience associated with a substance. So craving is controlled in a condition which the availability rather than the absence of a substance. Economic conditions provide underlying motivations for psychological adaptation. So saving limited resources and maintaining a sober body for an income-earning job can strengthen users' free will and lock them into a casual relationship with a substance. So once a general conception is established, casual use seems just impossible as preferable careers use choice. People may socially be driven into dependence if they ever use the substance.
Casual use to habitual use. This is a qualitative change. Body elasticity at casual use is permanently replaced with the psychological condition that integrates regular intakes of a substance into the maintenance of biological chemical equilibrium. Psychologically, casual users experience occasional effects in a horizon of non-effect. Habitual users, in contrast, land on a continent of continuous effects dotted only with spots of non-effect. The background changes from non-effect to a constant effect when users seek to amplify the effect of each occasional use or increase the frequency of use at the stage. In the economic aspect, a direct connection is that increased resources lead to improved access, therefore a higher level of use. However, connection can also be built the opposite. That is, contrasted resources knock casual users off balance, causing irregularity, such as overfeeding after an unusual long period of hunger in their casual use. A long lasting irregular experience can then develop into or set a stage of habitual use. Social factors facilitating casual use into habitual use may come from changes in work, study, or interpersonal relationships. Social perception of a substance and its reputation at the level of habitual use can also throw casual users into regular consumption. Habitual use to dependency. Dependency begins at habitual use. It becomes a career stage when use develops into a disease. With dependence, the body is no longer able to incorporate intakes of a substance into normal functioning. The bodily process is so distributed that it mistakes handling the substance as its whole function. Timely intakes of the substance therefore becomes a condition of the maintenance of life. Getting to stoppage. Stoppage can come from any career stage. People use a substance once but never intentionally experiment with it. People experiment with a drug but do not use it thereafter. People use a drug occasionally for some time and stop using it altogether. People maintain habitual use of a substance for a long time and quit their habit forever. People also become dependent on a drug and are recovered from it. All of them can gather at the point of stoppage.
So today I'm going to be talking about the career perspective, which is on chapter 2. So the section that I'm going to be talking about is career path, roles of use. Different roles of use can be identified throughout a complete career path. It is dialectical that these roles may also reflect particular substance use careers. There are certain general characteristics of specific roles, such as non-users, casual users, habitual users, and problematic users. First, we're going to talk about non-users. Non-users are people who do not use drugs. There are two groups of non-users: those who never use drugs and those who use drugs before. In the former, which are the ones that never used drugs, there are drug scars, drug sages, drug idiots, drug phobes, and drug haters who build their abstinence respectively upon power, spiritual sanctity, ignorance, fear, and hatred. In the latter group, there are former drug addicts, casual users, or habitual users. They may either relapse into their past habit or stay clean ever after. Also, retired non-users may have gained immunity against drugs and can therefore be less vulnerable than their never-used counterparts. So next we have the casual users. Casual users are take-it-easy people who probably have the most elasticity in their bodily adaptation. They play normal social roles. They also want to enjoy a few episodes of a getaway sensation amid their overall experience of socially approved activities. They can also exhibit a variety of styles in their drug use. They are not just light, occasional, and well-mannered users who condition their drug consumption on a self-regulated routine. There can be heavy users who work in responsible positions on weekdays but indulge themselves in alcohol over the weekend. So, for instance, here to your right, you see a picture of the recreational users, which is basically the same thing as the casual users. As you can see, it says drug user can easily say no when offered drugs. It does not rely on drugs for personal power like gaining more confidence. Never thinks about the next high. Has good relationships with friends, family, co-workers, and others. And last but not least, they're responsible with their money, using the money they earn to pay off expensive rather than wasting it on drugs. I mean, these type of people basically are taking the normal social roles as stated before, but yet they still indulge on drugs when they're, I don't know, socializing with their friends, going out. They still do the drugs, but not as much as someone who abuses the drugs on a daily basis. So next we have the habitual users. Habitual users are people who integrate regular use of a substance into their bodily process and behavioral routines.
The majority are legal substance consumers, such as caffeine users, tobacco smokers, and alcohol drinkers. The minority of illicit drug users divide by styles of use. A few privileged persons maintain a style of interrupted use as they cherish their deviant idiosyncrasy under a supposedly universal curtain of law. The privileges they have in their life provide them with protective conditions for their drug use career. A. High income to sustain the costly drug habit. B. Easy access to the higher echelon of dealers in the drug market. C. A relatively seclusive residence to maintain privacy and protect the drug use lifestyle. And D. Social impressions of celebrity, nobleness, or at least self-sufficiency to avoid attention from law enforcement. Last but not least, we have the problematic users. Habitual users live with their habitat through self-management. However, when physiological, psychological, economic, and social conditions change and run out of control, self-satisfying habits can turn into self-alienating dependence. Trouble users lose self-control occasionally and charge those who are around them with management of their problematic drug use. Serious problem users become dependent not only on drugs but also on family members or other sources for their drug and survival needs. They lose interest in productive social functions and care only about their craving for, comfort with, or suffering from drugs.
My name is Denise, and I'm going to be talking about theoretical applications. The career perspective places the object of a study in the time frame of its development to see how it evolves through the natural history, how it relates to its environment over time or a particular time, and how a particular experience thinks through the whole evolution process. With respect to users, the career perspective requires identifying user status over a time span. Are they users or non-users? If they are non-users, are they related or retired to never users, non-users? If they are users, what type of users are they? Are they novice users, experimenters, casual users, habitual users, or problem users? With status identification, it is then sound to proceed with a biographical analysis of users' drug history. In biographical analysis, users can be studied in detail regarding to their initiation. Experimentation, use rituals, use routines, and use reactions. They could be a career profile, can therefore be established, a map evolution of the past drug use and predict future use or non-use. For instance, individuals' profiles on retired users may shed light on whether an irregular exposure to prevention or treatment, contributions of withdrawal, and what role psychological adaptation plays in the maturation of drug career. They may also lend some predictably to future usage or non-use behavior. Regarding to particular substance, the career perspective calls for generalizing from individual users' experience to develop a quiz career pattern of use or abuse. Are the substance amenable to a long-term or short-term career use? Does the general career use involve different stages of progression or regression? What type of users does the substance generate? What kind of overall career path does the substance create for the most of its users? Which information collection of all these dimensions and substance profile can be developed? Such a profile may not only serve as a guide for users, policymakers, and concerned professionals, but also provide a basis to study how specific career paths may develop for different users due to their personal characteristics. For instance, while the advocate nature of nicotine promotes a general development career use for most smokers, individual career paths still changes with user characteristics. They differ from one another in terms of style, intensity, duration, and health consequences of use. Legal definition and social counter status of a substance also matter of a social permission tend to steer users towards lifestyle use. A social inhabitation may make a long-term use career unsustainable to most users. More generally, the career perspective brings about a dialectical approach of time, change, and development involving substance use, misuse, and abuse. Career evolves in time. Time is differentiated by change. Change paves the ways of development. Development passes through stage. Concretely, what time frame does the use career evolve? Does it correspond to childhood, adolescence, adulthood, or another period of life among users? Does it make a historical era for the substance use as the heroin era or the cocaine era, or have been identified in the U.S.? What major stages does the use of career passes through? Do all career paths necessarily involve initiation, experimentation, escalation, habituation, dependence, maturation, and abstinence? Or is each use career unique in terms of its evolutionary process? What changes are built into each career stage? Are some changes more important than others? Is there qualitative change that is primarily responsible for one career stage of the development into another? What is the indispensable agent of change in the development of a use career? Is there any other significant agent of change than those identifiable from psychological and physiological, economic, and social arenas? Is it possible that one agent overrides all the others in fashioning the important change in use career development? Finally, the career perspective creates a possibility to relate substance use and abuse to another career development in the life of users. With substance use or abuse career identified, it is natural to ask, what other career seriousness does the user engage in during his or her life? Is there an occupational career, a family career, or a career of hobby, a career of criminal involvement, or a career of other interests of his or her experience? How these careers relate to substance use or abuse unilaterally and multilaterally? Is there a moderation career that regulates substance use or abuse? Is there an acceleration career that fuels substance use or abuse? Or is there a non-interaction career that evolves independently from substance use or abuse?
Today I'll be discussing Chapter 2, the career perspective, specifically on empirical tests. In designing and conducting projects, certain research methods may be applied based on the expansion or enhancement of the data. Case studies seem to be the most suitable for empirical research on use career. As an example would be examining a substance. Research can conduct data on a use profile, identify a common career path, and how patterns of use change in relation to user characteristics. Different case studies use different methods. An example would be observation use to study behavioral change or validate self-reports rather than in microhistorical analysis. Historical materials are used such as diaries and records. This can help identify context of a drug era. Survey research includes cross-sectional data, and this can be used to identify use career patterns in a longitudinal fashion. To study this one must conduct surveys of current users to create a general. This will gather percentages and make research more accurate. Experimental studies can be effective to establish a career stage and measuring effect on a substance. Scientific experiments can be used to develop a system of biochemical references and accuracy for diagnosis, and quasi-experimental designs are more personal and looks at the progression from one stage to another.
Hello, my name is Francisco Facio, and I will be covering policy implications, public health, and social control in regard to substance use and abuse. The career perspective is composed of a historical and systematic approach to substance use and abuse. The historical approach compares substance use and abuse to the career process and analyzes how it has evolved over time. As for the systematic approach, it views substance use and abuse as a whole and examines how it has developed by its own logic and interaction with environmental factors. The career perspective influences policymakers and practitioners in decision making, reactions, and treatments, which lead to the next topic: public health. Public health's primary concern for substance use and abuse is to reduce risks associated with use and render treatment to users as necessary. As the data on risk and medical conditions for substance use and abuse is collected, it will allow health professionals to prioritize their prevention and treatment reactions, which will help them focus on substances that pose great risks and create the most medical problems. The career perspective can also help health professionals analyze career use pathways, establish use statuses, and identify prime time of intervention for risk reduction and medical treatments when encountering individual users. The historical and systematic analysis provides professionals with a solid foundation for accurate diagnosis and effective treatment planning. For example, users that consume multiple drugs may experience various use sequences and complicated patterns of interaction among different sequences and substances. This is why professionals should not judge an intervention by its immediate or gradual effects, nor become disappointed when seeing inattention, failure, or relapse. Rather, they need to observe the user's holistic experience and see whether effects are differentially attributable to various interventions received across their lifespan. As users may seem inattentive to messages in one prevention, fail some risk reduction endeavors, or relapse after several episodes of treatment. This does not mean that intervention is useless, because a seemingly unsuccessful intervention may have sparked an interest and motivation. Today's social control reaction to substance use and abuse is universal, as it lacks specificity and is overstretched. It's universal because the law that defines an age limit of use places substances under different degrees of control and can be applied across time and space. It lacks specificity because it doesn't distinguish among different states of use, types of users, and the severities of associated problems. And finally, it is overstretched as it reacts to any and all uses that is defined as illegal. The career perspective rationalizes social control by making it specific, problem-oriented, and effective. One being that there should not be a universal law on substance use and its use, as the substance can either be beneficial or harmful. If harmful, the control and legalization can only blow it out of proportion by making it more widespread and socially instituted. For example, the control over marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and other drugs may fuel a deviant interest in such substances, meaning depriving users of their inner control for dependent use, thus creating a menace to the larger society. Control should be directed to the consequence of use and limited problem users. The career perspective is useful when identifying problem use and its users for effective controls. Proactive social reactions may eradicate use temporarily, but may also drag users into problem use. On the other hand, problem-oriented control gives time to use in its natural development and trusts users to resolve their problems on their own in their career. And when we talk about a problem, we are talking about the disruption to a social order, violations of the law, commission of a crime, or posing a threat to human life. For example, driving under the influence of a substance. Also, finally, social control should be synchronized with self-management. The use in most times are not an issue, as a majority of users are casual users who are able to control, manage, and regulate their use, hobby, or routine through a natural process. Yet there are external forces that not only interrupt inner controls, it also creates an adaptive mechanism by which users depend on an eternal pressure for important self-management processes.
Life and community. Life is a developing process with multiple dimensions of activity. The community concept provides a communal setting where people interact with others while creating different lifestyles. Within the community, the views of substance use and abuse are seen as elements of the community. The need for the use can come from choice, need, or random effect. The author explains substance use and use as eventful, dynamic, and rich within the community. The career perspective helps distinguish between transitional and permanent, short-term and long-term effects or statuses of substance use and abuse. Within communities, people can take proper approaches toward use and users. Problem users come out of developmental shadow naturally in their use career. It would be best for community to take a wait and see approach. Wait and see approach would be giving the users time and letting time heal. While waiting for natural development, members of communities should substitute moral judgment and negative labeling for care and support to users and their family. Work and organization. Compared to community that gives refuge to different lifestyles, workplaces or tasks are performed for productive purposes. Rules should be followed in a way that services the execution of specific tasks. Substance abuse and use should be dealt with under the same premises. First, the idea of substance abuse is questioned as relevant. In some cases, use of substance abuse is irrelevant, can be simple irrelevant, such as smoking on a large farm. Substance profile learned from the career perspective can provide an organization with information to decide whether a substance is relevant in a specific context and whether they should be regulated or not. And the abuse impairs work performance and poses manifest dangers to the organization, it may be prohibited without question. Career perspective examines substance use and abuse as a progression over time. From career point, substance use is not just use of substance, it is distributed from various stages in specific pathways. Career perspective has important impacts on the way substance use and abuse are viewed, examined, and handled. There are psychological, sociological, economic, and social conditions that individuals react to those conditions. Lack of social support for problematic users can necessarily increase overall costs from substance-related consequences. It is important to take proper distinctions to direct intervention where it is needed.